Hello everyone, this is Dr. Catalana. This is your very first welcome to week 1 video for our EDCI 595 course. Now, first of all, I typically don't do these videos as a screencast, but I decided to do it in this format this first week so that I could navigate along in Blackboard to really give you a clear illustration of your work for this first week. So I am currently going to switch into a student preview. So this is exactly what you should see on your Blackboard page. At this time, you should have already completed that course orientation. So I'm going to click here on my learning modules, and most likely you have already logged in here. So one thing that I want to point out at first is the table of contents. Now, some of you may not currently see this table of contents, so I'm going to minimize it, and I'll show you what it looks like if it's hidden, because it's really hard to see at first. So the table of contents, if it is hidden, is either right here at this left corner, or it might even be down here and say table of contents. Now, if you would like to see the table of contents, which I definitely suggest you should, you can click this button right here and it will expand for you. I personally believe that it's easier to do this if your table of contents is displayed vertically. So if you click this little arrow, it will be right there. Okay, so what I'm looking at now is the table of contents for this entire learning module. So the beauty of the table of contents is you can see the whole outline here. So each one of these items is a different item that I've put in this learning module for you. The very first thing you want to start with is your module overview. Okay, so since learning modules at times have more than 1 week, in this case, I have it separated by week 1, which is where we are, and week 2. Okay, so you don't have to go specifically in this order. This is just a suggestion. So the first assignment, watch the Welcome to Week 1 video. Congratulations, you are currently doing that. Number 2, be sure to carefully review info on course orientation, course info. That's just saying make sure you've read the syllabus, make sure you did that course orientation. So moving on, number 3, create your library account. So for this course, some of your resources are linked directly to the Winthrop Online database. So since you are taking this course, you all have access to that database. It just may be that you haven't created an account to do so. So the first thing that you need to do is create your library account. And if I look over here in my table of contents, I see that is the first folder. So I can click here and see the directions for how to do that. And then I can click here that says the link, and that will bring me directly to the page to create my library account. Okay, so let's go back to our module overview. Now, we've done 1 through 3. The next step is to complete the introductory discussion board post. Now, something I've said several times already is your initial discussion board posts are always due Fridays, and then your responses to your classmates are always due Sundays. Okay, so let's talk about how to get to that introductory discussion board post. The beauty of the way the course is set up is you don't have to navigate away from this learning module. So right here I have a folder for discussion boards. I can click 3.1 and that will bring me to my introductory discussion board. So one thing you need to know about Blackboard, there are 2 different ways to navigate through Blackboard. The first is to click through their table of contents, which I believe is the most practical way. However, you can also click through in order right here and go through the entire learning module 1 page at a time. So for example, if I click from my module overview, the next page is the title of this folder, Create Your Library Account. If I click to the next page, it's the directions. Okay, so I can choose to do that, but you have to go in order there. So I find it a lot easier to just use the table of contents. Okay, so we have talked about your introductory discussion board. And then let's start to look at the case study. Now, the majority of your discussions are based on case studies. Okay, your very first case study is all about differentiation. So in the video that introduces this first learning module, I did a quick introduction to differentiation. Remember, this is how we're changing our instruction to meet the diverse strengths and needs of our gifted students. So before you do much research on, okay, what is this differentiation, and you start reading and reviewing the library content, which is down here, the very first thing you want to do is actually read our case study. So our course is very case-based, so it's helpful to read the case study at the very beginning of the week, even if you don't get it, okay? So the first thing I'm going to do is read this discussion prompt. So after reading the case study and the library materials, which I'll do, I'm going to do discussion post 1. And here's my first prompt. How are the classrooms in the case study reflecting differentiation? Where do I see evidence? Where I see evidence for readiness, interest, and learning preferences? And where do I see evidence for content, process, and product? Now, it's totally fine if that sounds Greek to you right now, okay? All you're doing is doing the initial reading of the case study. So at least at this point, I know, okay, this is the question I'm working toward. Now I can click here and actually read the first case study. So this is simply linked, and here's our first case study. So this first case study gives 3 classrooms, and we're discussing how these classrooms are apparently using differentiation. So let's start and look what this looks like. For example, let's just look at, for time's sake, let's look at classroom 2. All right, so we have a multi-grade high school band class. Okay, don't just say, I don't teach band, and therefore just kind of zone out. You can still look for these theories within any classroom. It's actually helpful to do so. Okay, so students will play for a variety of school and community events. Some of Mr. Green's students have no experience with music. Come played with a corner last year, but have no other musical experience. So I'm like, okay, there's a lot of different types of readiness, which is how much the students already know about the material. He often arranges music so that the score contains some basic parts that allow students to play while they explore key concepts, okay? So it sounds like he's differentiating the process a little bit. And then I can keep reading into what he's doing in the classroom. Now, I won't go much further here, but the very first thing you want to do is read through these case studies, even if you don't understand the discussion board prompt, because you will, okay? So let's imagine that I've read the discussion board prompt. I know I'm looking for these different components of differentiation, but I'm not quite sure what they mean, okay? So what do we do next? In our module overview, I've read the case study, so now I need to read these learning support materials in the library. So here's your course library. Imagine that this is a face-to-face class. Now, before coming to class, let's say our class is Monday at 2, I would probably assign some readings, right? While in class, I would give some presentations. So I've linked some PowerPoint presentations. I would most likely also allow you guys to watch some videos and provide some examples. And then I would also provide some handouts, okay? So imagine this is like all of the course material that I give you. One thing that I want to note is a lot of times these materials will overlap, and I do that on purpose, right? Some of you will learn better by the readings, some of you will learn better for the lectures, okay? So for just an example here, imagine I'm looking at these different topics. I know I'm supposed to analyze differentiation. Maybe a good place to start is, what is differentiation? Okay? So this brings me to a quick PowerPoint on qualitatively differentiated curriculum. So how is differentiation different from the core curricular experience? giving a definition of differentiation. It has been adjusted, modified, and or added to create the needs, abilities, and interests of the gifted learners. Okay, so this has given me a very brief overview on what differentiation is. Ooh, look at this. This is even telling me an example of this is not differentiation, an example of this is good differentiation. Okay, so that's just one resource. So what's your challenge is to explore all these materials and to start to understand what differentiation means. Now, one thing I want you to know, I will not hold you accountable for memorizing everything here. Okay? However, I do hold you accountable to reviewing it all and reading it all. That is because if you read everything and review everything and watch all of these videos, they will help you understand the content better. Now, the way that I assess this is through your discussion board prompts. Okay? So that's why I like to say make sure you read that discussion prompt first, and then you can get an understanding of where you're going in your library. Okay, so let's go back to our module overview. I've read the learning support materials. I do suggest that you take some notes so you have everything together. If there's certain materials that you think are particularly helpful, download them and keep them for your personal use. All right, so my last thing is to actually post to the discussion board. All right, so I can go directly here to Case 1 discussion board. And here I see, again, that discussion board prompt. And when I'm ready to post to that discussion board, I'll just click right here. Now, I do want to show you here the discussion board requirements. Okay, so this is an overview of what I expect for your discussion board. And then right here, I know this is important to you all, is my discussion board rubric. So if I click that, it actually is going to download right here. And I can see what do I need to do in order to score the most points for this first discussion board. Okay, so the first is that I need to address the case content. This basically means you can't just write me a discussion board post that says, this is what differentiation is, right? That's just a summary of the material. What I'm looking for here is you're clearly addressing the question. So you're saying, I'm analyzing this one specific classroom, and these are the ways that differentiation worked. This is how I saw content process product. So it's very analysis based. Okay. The next is your required library materials. So an important thing that I want you to get used to as graduate students is to back up your responses with evidence. So in order to do that, I do ask that in each of your discussion board posts, you cite at least 2 required readings, or you could cite a video, okay? I do ask that you do that in APA style if possible. For some things like a video, you can just put in parentheses where you got the information. Okay, so I know I need to be very specific to the case study. I know I need at least 2 required readings. Here, this is containing or about articulation here. So this should not be like a stream of consciousness. So you should definitely take some time to work on this writing. Again, this is the main way that I assess that you understand the library content. So I do expect these responses to be well formatted. There shouldn't be glaring mistakes grammar-wise. And more importantly, I just need to see evidence that you've really thought through your response. And lastly, remember that you're required to respond to your classmates. So by the end of the week, that Sunday, you should respond to multiple postings, so at least 2 in order to earn those full points. This discussion board post rubric is the same throughout the semester, so you could just go ahead and save it if you'd like. Okay, so I'm going to navigate back to my Blackboard page, and let's just check my module overview. That's everything for week 1. Okay, so in terms of week 1, that's what you're aiming for. And then week 2, we will continue looking at differentiation and we'll do more of an application assignment. Now, one thing to keep in mind is you want to visit these discussion boards very often. So I can click to launch, and then no one has submitted yet, so you would just do create thread. But as the week goes on, you'll have a lot of responses here. So I really encourage you, even beyond those 2 required responses, to make sure that you are being active in the course. Now, this is a good place to stop because I feel a little lost. What happened to my beautiful schedule? Where do I go? All right, don't freak. You just go back to your learning modules. Here's learning module 1. Okay, so this is your introduction to week 1 of our course. Again, I'll post another video at the start of next week, but make sure that you are following the schedule in terms of your assignments. The biggest thing this week is to really familiarize yourself with Blackboard. That's why I've taken the time to make this video. So please feel free to email me or call me with any questions, and I'm so excited to work with you all.